DoS attacks have a few key attributes which helps explain why they're becoming so prevalent. So what is it that's making them so popular with the attackers? Well, for one, you don't need a specific application or infrastructure vulnerability in the target resource. So for example, if it's a target website, it doesn't need to have a SQL injection risk or a direct object reference risk or anything else in terms of oversights in the coding of the site itself. It doesn't need to have misconfigured servers, and it doesn't need to exploit the fact that the target might be using outdated components with known vulnerabilities. All of these various web security vulnerabilities and infrastructure vulnerabilities that we're so used to defending against make absolutely no difference to the effectiveness of a denial of service attack. So this makes them very broadly applicable. The other thing is that they can be really cheap to run. Later on in this course, we're going to look at denial of service as a service, and it's enormously easy for anybody to go out there and literally buy a service that will mount the attack on their behalf. And they can buy them cheap as well. So very, very low barrier to entry, particularly for smaller scale DoS attacks. The thing about these services as well is that there's a lot of them. I'm going to give you some examples of some of them. We're going to look at one in particular, just to demonstrate how commoditized this style of attack has become. It's just a service. You just go and pay some people some money and they deliver the service for you. It just so happens that the service is a malicious attack intended to take down adversaries. One thing we're also going to look at in depth, particularly in the next module, is the fact that denial of service attacks have so many different ways of being mounted, so many different protocols and attack techniques. It's not like it is this one thing, and if we can get the defenses for this one thing right, we'll be okay. It's not. It's a much more complex ecosystem. Lots of different styles of attacks and lots of different ways of increasing their effectiveness. And finally, one of the things that makes these attacks so effective is that attribution can be really difficult. It can be hard to track down who the perpetrator is, in part because very frequently these attacks are distributed, so they come from many different sources. I also just mentioned the fact that there are services. So if an attacker takes care to hide their identity, and then they use a third-party service, actually tracking it back to the original perpetrator can be quite difficult. So all of these things make denial of service attacks enormously effective. And indeed, these are the sorts of reasons why they are growing in popularity. Growing in popularity and growing in size, as we saw earlier on. But I want to move on and talk about the motivations. So this is why these attacks are so effective, but what actually motivates attackers to launch a denial of service attack on a target? Let's go and look at that now.